All right, everybody. Welcome back from the bye week. What's going on, Lions fans and CFL fans? Welcome to season 8, episode 16 of the BC Lions Den podcast. I'm Brian Warishan, your host, joined by my co-host, Cole McGarvey. Bryce Coots is away this week on a work trip and won't make the show this week. The BC Lions are back at it, coming off the bye week and looking to build on their first win of the season. This week, they traveled to Edmonton to try and get back-to-back wins over the Elks and looking to win the Western or that season series against the Elks, something that may come in handy down the road. We'll look back at their first win and look ahead to the Friday tilt with BC Lions colorman and alumni Giulio Caracatta. We'll also have our keys to the game, our power rankings, and our picks for the week. We'd also like to take a minute to ask you to head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe if you haven't already done so. It helps the show grow and it doesn't cost you anything, and you'll be able to keep up with everything that we're doing. Let's get things going now and welcome in Cole McGarvey. Cole, hope you had a chance to recharge during the bye week. And we look forward to the meat of the season now as the Lions have the next 9 weeks on their schedule.
Yes, Brian, thank you for having me in once again. The stretch run that it will be until the next time we do have a bye week and get to recharge the batteries again. But it was nice to take the week off, Brian, as I was just mentioning to you there backstage. Because now we will go basically 2 months in 1 week straight. But it was a little bittersweet because it was kind of wanting to maybe celebrate the win a little bit and obviously talk about some stuff coming off the victory. But anyways, we have a lot to talk about tonight, don't we, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always a bummer when you don't do a show after we finally get a win. I wanted to do a show so bad, but when I got back from Kelowna, I took a look at my emails and I knew it was going to be a really busy week. So we just decided to take advantage of the bye week. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. And the man on our screen here, Mr. Dennis McKnight, is our new special teams coordinator. We're going to get into that a little bit. He's 66 years old. He brings extensive playing and coaching experience. He played 11 seasons in the National Football League as an offensive lineman, primarily with the San Diego Chargers, plus time in Detroit and Philadelphia. Appeared in 141 NFL games with 100 starts. He previously coached special teams for Hamilton in 2017, 2024, and 25. Also coached the Ticats offensive line in 2018 and 19. He retired after last season. He's also coached with Edmonton and Hawaii, SMU, San Diego State, Washington State, and teams in the XFL. Seems like quite a character, Cole. We're going to play the interview in a second here, but he's an old school, hard knocks kind of football guy. And he looks like he's going to bring a lot of enthusiasm to this special teams unit.
Yeah, like I was mentioning, you, Brian, I only seen the little clip and then what Baker and Nick were referencing today in First and Now. But he seems like a guy that hopefully is going to come in here, have the confidence about his schemes and techniques, and hopefully apply them, because it wasn't the standard wasn't good enough with the previous special teams coach. And I think that was a huge phase of Canadian football, and just a huge reason for the 0-3 start and some of those losses. And they need to get it corrected and start having some better football being played in that phase of things.
Bear Paw, Chris, I know it was your birthday this week, but doesn't mean you come in here and get to trash talk. That's all right. Just calm down there, buddy. Just kidding. Okay, so let's listen to this interview, because I got a chuckle out of it. Some of the things that he said. We're just waiting on Giulio to join the studio here, so we'll listen to this and get some more comments in on it.
Describe your coaching style, Dennis. Well, I'm an offensive lineman by trade, so I coach special teams with an offensive line mentality. Special teams are the heart and soul of your team, and you got to have that mentality, that mindset. There's pressure. For special teams, every down is 3rd and 20, and Howie Long ain't playing draw. Okay, it's a high pressure deal, but that's what I think's kept me young, so I love it.
Dennis, what makes or what causes special teams to have problems, and then how do you have a good special teams unit?
Bad technique. Technique is everything. You can have a superior athlete with bad technique, you don't have a good player. You can have an average athlete with superior technique, you got a chance. Take that over from O-line stuff. Technique is everything. Staying with the play longer than the opponent, having the will, the desire that in the return unit for a guy, my guy's not going to make the play. on a punt team, protecting our punter's the quarterback, you know, and on kickoff coverage, we're the first defensive, you know, you got base defense, nickel, dime, all this crap. The kickoff coverage is the first defensive unit. We're the starters. We determine where the ball starts. So it's that mindset that I've always had.
And the pride of turning the field, flipping the field can be such a game changer, especially in a football.
Here's the deal in a nutshell. There's an invisible guy at the start of every game, and he's out there in the field somewhere. It's the special team's job to capture him and bring him to our sideline. And that invisible guy is Mr. Momentum. That's our job. Now it's up to the O&D to keep him. But we cannot let the other guys get Mr. Momentum first, because it is hard to get back.
Dennis, I know you haven't had much time with these guys, but what have you seen from them, whether you're looking
Well,
at
you got to
film?
realize I played these guys 4 times in the past 2 years. And I'm not blowing smoke up their skirts, but this is a big, strong, fast, physical team. I love my guys in Hamilton, Tyler Ternowski, Ante. They're dogs, pit bulls. These guys are a different caliber. Now, if you can take this physicality that they have and tighten up the technique, we're going to be good. Not that we're not good now, but we're going to be.
How much did you miss the game, and how happy to you be back?
Let's face it, I'd retired last year. I have 3 grandsons. I was good. I was happy with my body of work. Then football season starts. You're watching the games, and I'm sitting there going, don't lose leverage. Save the block. Don't push them in the back. And my wife's like, you're done. And I'm like, well, yeah. And my daughter's saying stuff like that. So it never leaves you. I've got teammates, mentors of mine when I play with the Chargers, are 75 years old. We watch a game together. They're like, punch him, sit back, don't reach, don't. It never leaves you.
Has anyone
All right, that was new special teams coach Dennis McKnight. Kind of fires you up a little bit. There was a comment in the chat from Acor about old school football coach. Will the young guys respond to him? Well, they don't really have a choice. I mean, like, they got to get their shit together. And this guy seems like the kind of guy that is going to demand they get their shit together. Interesting to note, you know, he did coach the Hamilton special teams last year with Isaiah Wooden. They had some good success there on returns. So hopefully he can provide some insight there and get the return game going a little bit. Would help if we had a player the caliber of Isaiah Wooden, but I think I'm kind of excited. He got me jacked up. I loved the line about Howie Long ain't playing draw, and you know, some of this other stuff he was saying. Cut the reporter off mid-question there. Listen, you've seen these guys for the last 4 years, and I'm not blowing smoke up their skirt. But yeah, he's a definitely an old school football coach. I kind of got a chuckle out of it when I saw the interview.
Yeah, to Eric Hoar's question there about will young guys like it, I think they'll love it and they'll absolutely respond to it. I think you look at the coaching staff with Buck Pierce, and he's more of a laid-back personality. You don't see too much emotion from him on the sidelines. I think from the defensive side of things, you probably see that a little bit from RP because I think Benny does show a little bit of juice from time to time, but I think having a guy like that through it along, you know, say come 7-8 weeks from now when you know, things are getting a little bit, they're dragging on the dog days of the season. And this guy's, you know, bringing the juice to every special teams meeting. He's bringing the juice to every practice and on game days and stuff like that. You kind of need a guy to kind of bring that energy to spark the team. So I think they'll respond absolutely. And I think you even heard him reference his guys back in Hamilton. Tyler Tarnowski's a young guy. Andre Litre was the other guy that he mentioned. So I love it. I definitely like the people that are saying that he makes me want to run through a wall and fires me up. The Mr. Momentum line was a good one as well. The invisible guy out there on the field, and everybody has to capture him. But you know, hopefully things will be able to, you know, turn it on the field, because if not, right, they kind of, it's all talk until they're able to turn things around, and hopefully they do.
Who's going to be the first guy to go get a Mr. Momentum jersey?
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, we're just waiting for Giulio to get in the studio here. He may be a little bit late. We'll see if he joins us shortly here, but let's kind of look ahead. Well, let's go back a little bit, Cole, and talk about, since we didn't get a show in after the win, what did you like about the Lions' performance in Winnipeg last 2 weeks ago, and then what do you think they have to do to kind of keep things going here as they head into Edmonton?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I would say the defense is improvement, step forward. Not only did the turnovers come, but I think the number one key that we talked about going into that week was, we talk about containing great players like Justin Rankin because you're never going to slow them down. They essentially they had their perfect game versus Justin Rankin and doing a very good job of containing him not only on the ground but through the air as well. So that'll be, my biggest thing going into this week is can they duplicate or replicate the same type of game versus the Justin Rankin. He'll obviously be fired up to have a good game and perform on Friday night at home as well. He was able to bounce back last week versus Ottawa. In their affair, I believe he was over 100 yards rushing once again, and then 40, 50 yards through the air. So just the ultimate weapon that he's been all year alongside Tyson Philpott for, the MLP frontrunners up to this point. And then, offensively, it was nice to see them execute and, be able to continue drives and kind of see some different faces be able to step into that spotlight, right? Obviously, James Butler was pretty quiet. Xander Horvath as well to start the season. Both those guys find the end zone twice, which is huge for us. And I think going forward needs to be kind of a focal point of the offense because I think not only will that help the offensive line, that'll help Nathan Rourke and the receivers as well. But as we get healthier as well, it will be tempting to kind of continue to try to, go through the air when we have a guy like Nathan Rourke.
Yeah, I saw a quote from I think it was Dave Campbell, the color guy for Edmonton, posted something about a clip from Cody Fajardo saying they basically gave us that win. I think Cody needs to cool his jets a little bit because the Lions dominated. They ran the ball down their throats. They stopped Justin Rankin. They got pressure on Cody and made him force him into turnovers. The Lions didn't give them anything in that game. They were full value for that win, and I think it was a little disrespectful for Cody Fajardo to say otherwise. I know they're 4-1, but come on, let's look at who you've beaten. You beat Ottawa twice. You beat us when we were struggling, or not, didn't even beat us yet.
Montreal's are really only legit kind of win on their resume.
Yeah, well, Winnipeg too. I think.
Sorry, yeah.
Even that Montreal game, they were a ref's decision away from losing that game in overtime. So, let's cool our jets on the Elks a little bit. Full value. They're 4-1. They're in first. They're tied for first place. They got two big games coming up against Saskatchewan after this, and I think that's when we'll kind of see if this Elks team is for real. Justin Rankin is an MOP candidate. There's no question about it. Their defense has played well. They've got some good receivers. But I don't think that they gave the Lions anything. We'll see what happens this Friday. Yeah, here it is. The Lions Cody just gave the Lions some great bulletin board material. I would be pinning that up in the dressing room at Commonwealth that, Cody thinks they gave us that game. Bob McDill comes in with another comment. Reminds me of a young big McKenna. Oh, sorry, this is Van East Eric. McKenna reminds him of a young Big Hill. McKenna needs to start over Hladek if the ratio will allow. I think the ratio will allow it because Konar dressed.
They also, with losing Hladek at linebacker, insert Haggerty at safety, right? That's your other Canadian who steps in. Finley stays in as a starter as well on defense, so you don't lose him. You just move him up to the box. So essentially, you just swap, Finley into the box. He's playing the other side. He's playing the Sam linebacker where Hladek will play Will, and things you don't have to worry about kind of, having to deal with the ratio because Haggerty comes in and fills that other spot as well. So I think everything should be good. And I would think you don't mess with a winning lineup. I know that's more of a cliche in hockey. But considering that I think we talked about it as well. Did we talk about it last week? Or it's been 2 weeks now that Haggerty's started at safety. It was the first game in touchdown Kelowna, but had himself a pretty decent game, maybe a little bit more quieter stat-wise. And then, I think he was one of the more calming presence in the secondary, right? Kind of his influence in the post and being able to keep things, bottled up over the top. So hopefully we see the same lineup on defense.
McKenna had a strong game, 6 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, I believe. So, yeah, and we've got another question here from Joseph. How bad is Nate DeMontenac's shoulder injury? I don't think it's that bad. When I was in Kelowna, I attended all 3 practices, and he was still doing rehab stuff, but he wasn't practicing. But he started the season on the 6th game, so he can come off anytime. I don't think there's any rush to bring him back, given the way that other receivers have stepped up, like Senecal, Jermaine Jackson. Was Stanley Berryhill listed as available this week? I did not notice that.
I don't believe so, but I also think, Brian, he's in good spirits from everything we've seen. He was in some of the photos pregame in Touchdown Kelowna where he's kind of smiling coming out of the bus. So he feels like, as a young player, the good thing, I think, when you're traveling and stuff like that, you're a part of the team, right? So that's the best case scenario. When you get injured as a young player, maybe you feel like you're not a part of the team because you're not going on the road and you're missing some of those things. So I think, as you said, Brian, they're not really in a rush to bring him back. When you have Senecal, you've been tweeting some stuff over the last few days about being surprised Kieran Fassant's coming back. So when you have guys like that are in front of him, I feel like you want to take your time, be as cautious as possible. And you saw how much promise he showed in the preseason. You want to make sure that you bring him back at 100% and not rush things, especially when you're talking about a Week 7 contest. You'd rather Nate Demonte not come back if he is able to contribute and be 100%, come August, September, something like that.
Bob Medilla is asking in terms of, we missed one there. He snuck in another one before I could get the first one up. What's Seven McGee's status? I think that's a longer term injury. I wouldn't expect him back anytime soon. I'm pretty sure, Van Easterick says, he's gone for the year, if not the very end of the year. Okay. At this point, I am starting to wonder if Giulio is going to show up. We asked him to be here at 7:10. I think he might have forgot, but that is fine. We'll keep going here, and we'll, as they say, the show goes on, right? If he shows up, we'll definitely bring him in, but we're just going to get into our game preview now. So let's throw up some game stats. This is how the Lions and Elks kind of stack up at the moment. Quite close in a lot of categories. The big one, of course, is rushing yards, but that's starting to creep up for the Lions. Points per game, the Lions have had a couple tough outings, so they're allowing a few more points per game than the Elks, but we expect that to continue to improve. Passing yards, the Lions actually have more. That's should have been orange. And rushing yards per game, 59.8 to 103.6. But we saw the Lions running attack come alive last week, and the one less game played too. We saw the Lions rushing attack come back come to fruition last week, and hopefully the Elks have lost David Beard to injury last week. He won't be playing this week, so they're going to have to plug in some guys. They're going to have some holes that may be able to be exploited there to get pressure on Cody Fajardo. And on the defensive side of the ball, they lost Jordan Williams, who won't be playing this week. And that's a big subtraction for them. So hopefully the Lions can continue rushing the football. I loved how they got Horvath and Butler involved last week. And I think if they can continue to do that, they can have some success. Now, watching the Elks last week, what they started doing is using Javon Leake and James Butler more as a tandem, and that could pose a whole lot of problems for the Lions. You've got to make sure that you've got both of those guys accounted for, and if you pay too close attention to those guys, they're going to go over at the top and start hitting guys like Austin Mack and some of the better receivers that they have. So it's definitely a challenge. The Lions have allowed 10 sacks versus the Elks 6, and only have 4 of their own. The Elks have 7 sacks. Again, they played one more game than the Lions. But Cole, some early thoughts on how they stack up heading into Friday.
Yeah, I'm very interested to kind of see how this one plays out to start the week in the CFL. The Lions coming off the bye, you talked about it before we went live. The Lions kind of going through a similar situation, struggling to start the year. They come out of the bye and then they go on this run. Can they kind of, do something similar? And I think this is a good start, right? They have had Edmonton's number over the last, since Nathan Rourke's been here. I know he hasn't lost, and I believe it's 12 of 13 victories now for the Lions over Edmonton. And similar to you, I'm not as much of a believer in Edmonton. Maybe if you're Bear Paw Chris, or I know was it Andrew that messaged you or commented something on our power rankings, not too happy about their rankings. But I just think, as great as Justin Rankin is, I do think they are a little bit kind of I don't know if you want to say a one-trick pony, but they do have Austin Mack in that receiving core. Brendan O'Leary Orange made a huge play for them last week when things were kind of in the balance, and then he made I think it was like a 90-yard reception, something like that, to kind of swing back momentum to them. They don't really put a lot of fear into defenses outside of Justin Rankin. That's why I think, for the Lions, all eyes are on Justin Rankin, and for a secondary coming in that was very bad through 3 weeks, they didn't muster much success at all. I know Austin Mack was able to have a little bit, but for the Lions, I think if you're able to, build a similar game plan to the one that you had up in touchdown Kelowna, try to get the lead early, try to play from in front so that you can establish a guy like James Butler, you can establish Xander Horvath. I think for me, as much as we've, you, me, Bryce have all pounded for, this two-back system and two-back weaponry, it is a little bit hard in the CFL game to kind of use two, but this is the exact way you do it. Is not only do you use them on the ground, you use them through the air, right? And we saw it with Xander Horvath had the one receiving touchdown where he's able to put a little wiggle on the corner. He's able to even make Moncrief fall over. And then he's obviously been a pretty good weapon in the short yardage department. That's where he was able to punch in another touchdown for us down and around the goal line. You had JB up over 100, where we were all kind of being like, man, coming into the year, the money that maybe that Nathan Rourke spoke up for you to have could have went to it, say, at Jarrell Broxton. But hopefully this is where JB starts to turn things around and start to have another strong season like we know he can, because the Lions are going to need him going forward and need the running game to be, I think, one of the focal points of the offense. And it is kind of surprising, not a weird thing to say when you have Nathan Rourke, but I think it'll just enhance him and help him even more.
I think one of the things too is, like, as bad as the Lions offense has been, rushing yards allowed per game, 59.8. So it's just not Justin Rankin they're shutting down. They shut down Dietrich Mills. They've been doing it in every game they played this year. So their run defense is very good. It'll be interesting to see what kind of wrinkles that the Elks come up with. And we talked about them using more of a tandem with Javon Leake and spelling off Rankin and releasing Rankin out into flats and things like that, where he did damage 2 weeks ago. But this Lions defense is good at stopping the run, and the run is what fuels the Elks offense. And if you can shut down the run, that forces Cody Fajardo to use his arm and his legs more. And if we can flush him out of the pocket, they got to him a couple times in Kelowna. I think that's how you have success against the Edmonton Elks, and really no other team that they've played have been able to shut down Justin Rankin. So that's obviously the key for the Lions.
And always a big thing, right? Like, they finally got on the turnover board, right? And that's a huge thing for not only momentum, but when you see guys start to make plays in the secondary, the Finley interception, right? I think a lot of people, they'll see the Finley interception and it'll get posted on socials. But you think of a guy who was the guy that tipped the ball? Adam Konar, right? Kind of a depth linebacker that maybe if you're, say, a casual fan, you might not even know who an Adam Konar is. He's a special teams linebacker, veteran Canadian, right? Who comes into the game and is able to make a play for his team, right? And kind of swing momentum back. So very cool. And I think they need to build on that defensively. And I think this is another good matchup, as I said, with, Austin Mack and that receiving core. Like, they don't put too much fear personally, to me personally anyways. I feel like for many defenses with who they got over there, right? Like, Brendan O'Leary Orange is a decent receiver. But I think if you're RP kind of designing a passing game or whatever he's kind of involved in, you can kind of focus a lot of your attention towards Austin Mack and that Cody Fajardo kind of tandem, right? That where Cody's going a lot of the time, especially on second down, second and long, second and medium situations. He's going to look for Austin, excuse me. So just building on last week, and hopefully they're able to execute the same way.
A lot of people are talking about how the Elks responded against Ottawa. But I will point out that game was 16-14 to start the fourth quarter. It was not a blowout type of game. Edmonton struggled against that Ottawa defense for most of the game, and then kind of exploded when they got some turnovers there was the Jake Mayer show
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter there, but by no means was that game reflective of the score at the end. It was a fairly close game heading into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'll say Justin Rankin bounced back. I don't know about the Edmonton Elks fully. I think, as you said about Jake Mayer, we talked about on the show before, as close as the game felt, like I just felt like Ottawa was never threatening. And maybe that says a little bit more about Ottawa than Edmonton, I think. But I think if you're the BC Lions, like, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of, hey, we are still the Lions and we can still get a victory here. You're going back home versus Toronto next week. That's a huge opportunity to build momentum, get back at home, get back into your locker room, and start to kind of, hit the ground running here and start to stack some wins.
Joseph says, my concern is momentum. They just started to begin to half. Not sure what that means, but has the bye week messed it up? I believe it will take away from what they started in the last game. I don't think so. I think when you're 0-3 and you finally get that win heading into a bye week, that's a good feeling. And I think that you want to get back to it. And, from everything I've read and heard, the Lions have had a good week of practice. They're hungry. They're ready to go. I'm sure Buck Pierce and the coaching staff have been working on some stuff, some new wrinkles. They've had an extra game to scout Edmonton now from that Ottawa game. They've seen what they're starting to do with Javon Leake, and they can kind of prepare for that defensively. So I don't think that the momentum, Mr. Momentum, is hiding anywhere. I think the Lions realize the situation they're in, and they still got to keep winning football games, and they've got the first place Elks in front of them. So I don't think that'll be a factor.
I'm not overly concerned. I will say that it was asked to Nathan Rourke at practice, I believe, yesterday, and don't want to speak for him, but he did kind of pause a little bit and say, like, yeah, it would have been nice to keep going. But as you said, Brian, I think they're going to have a good week of practice. Nobody's going to rest on, the bye week ruined our momentum. They're going to be ready to go. They're professionals. So that will be something that maybe, how do they start the game? Do they come out a little bit flat because they're on the bye? As I talked about with, like, the run game, that's a huge part of being able to establish that and kind of utilize that game. If you're down, say 7-0, 10-0, as annoying as it is from a fan's perspective, it kind of tends to get put on the back burner a little bit because you feel like you're having to play catch up.
Got some more questions here. Where should we go? Secondary looked better with Williams at halfback. I think the defense has looked a lot better with Jackson Finley moved down to nickel. I think that he has really played well there and made a big impact on the defense, and they're getting more pressure up front. And that's, like we talked about when they were really struggling in the back end. If you're not getting pressure up front, it's a lot to ask for your secondary to cover guys for that period of time. And it's just almost impossible, right? Because in the CFL, there's so much room on the field, and guys can just simply run around and get open if the quarterback has all day back there. So I think it's all part and parcel to the pressure they're getting up front, and hopefully they continue that. I thought Darnell Sankey had a fantastic game in Kelowna in the second game. He's starting to make his mark. Had the big interception there to seal the win. So I think we'll continue to see some improvement from the Lions secondary as long as the pressure up front continues. Levi Bell coming back. That's another thing that the bye week did, is it allows some guys to get healthy that might not have played last week. If we had to go back to back with Edmonton, I think there's a total of about 5 guys that are coming off the injury list this week. So that's what you want from your bye week. You want guys to get healthy and come back into the lineup and contribute. So Kieran Passant could be a big addition this week. Not that Jermaine Jackson hasn't contributed and Nick Senecal hasn't contributed, but Kieran Passant was having a breakout season, I thought, before he got hurt, and I'm really looking forward to see what he does back in the lineup.
Yeah, on Kieran, he's built that chemistry with Nathan, right? They put in the work over the last how many off seasons now, training in Surrey and training with Rob in North Vancouver there. So, for me, I'm always rooting for my junior guys, and Kieran's obviously a West Shore Rebels alumni. And agree with you, Brian, that I thought he was having a little bit of a breakout season, and maybe 500-600 yards kind of breakout type of season, nothing too crazy, but I think turning into a very key contributor for the Lions to be that Aiden Eberhardt type reliable fourth, fifth receiver for Nathan Rourke, that we know that we're going to go to him and the 4 or 5 receptions he's going to get, because we know come when they're healthy, Justin McInnis, Keon Hatcher, they're going to get theirs. It seems like Jermaine Jackson has developed quite the chemistry with Nathan Rourke as well. I believe the last 2 weeks, Jermaine's finished as the number 2 receiver. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, yes, now, versus the loss versus Calgary. He had over 100. And then last week, I know he was the second leading receiver once again, I want to say. So looks like he's developed some chemistry. But the more weapons that are coming back, I think the better for Nathan, especially when you look at a guy like Kieran, who's hopefully able to pick up where he left off, because he was a valuable weapon for us early on in the year.
TJ Lee does come back this week. We've got a couple questions on what happens there. I'm not sure how they're going to use him. Like we say, when you win a football game, it's kind of counterproductive to change the lineup or fiddle with the lineup too much. I don't know if the Lions or how the Lions are going to use him. Cole, do you have any idea what you'd like to see from TJ Lee when he's back in the lineup, or where they're going to put him?
I don't know how this is gonna. I don't know how people are gonna react to this, but I don't know if I would bring him back right away. I think like I said about not messing with the winning lineup. Roland Kent obviously kind of maybe is that guy that maybe would be in question right now, because I think Deontay Williams moving to half, you're not taking him off the field, right? He's a sharpied-in starter. He's not going outside to play corner. I think you give Roland Kent kind of maybe another game to, obviously, he's been one of the more criticized, I think, players in the secondary over the last few years. He's kind of, the guy that we moved on from Marcus Sales for. So I'm curious to see what happens. Obviously, TJ Lee has a ton of, built-in man hours and sweat, all blood, sweat, and tears into this, organization with RP, with Mike Benavides. So I'm curious how that conversation goes, especially with a guy like Gary Peters when he comes back as well, who will be ready to go and wanting to help out. So I'm curious how those conversations are going on behind the scenes. I do think those guys are valuable in ways, though, because they are veterans, right? And some of these guys are so young, they haven't seen everything, right? And they need the voice of a TJ Lee and Gary Peters to be around. I just don't know how much do we want to see them on the field after, I think things were struggling. We saw things improve, right? So I don't think you mess with things right away. You see how things go this week. And if things go differently, then maybe you do insert TJ Lee into the lineup just for the sake of his voice. And I think that's at least the floor he'll come into is the same as Roland Kent as well.
I think that improvement is probably one of the reasons why they're not rushing Gary Peters back too, because I talked on our last show about the conversation I heard between Gary Peters and TJ Lee, and Gary Peters thought he was ready to go. So now that they've seen some improvement, what is it? Stanley Thomas Oliver. I thought he stepped in and played some good reps. I think Colden is still struggling a little bit. I do think that when they decide Gary Peters is ready to go, I think he's going to get a shot to go in there.
I agree.
He's proved himself to be one of the best corners in the Canadian Football League over the last few years. And I think you give him that chance to help your football team. His experience, if he's healthy, can be valuable to this defense, just like TJ Lee was valuable last year when he came back. So I think that, we are going to see Gary Peters. I think TJ Lee is a different question, and I'm not sure just because somebody's available on the injury list doesn't mean they're going to come right into the lineup either. It just means they practiced and they're available for selection. So we'll see what the Lions do with the lineup. We haven't seen a depth chart yet. I'm guessing that'll come out tomorrow. We just be guessing right now what they're going to do with that. They may dress an extra DB and have TJ Lee rotate in from time to time as well in certain situations.
And I think on the secondary, right, I agree with you on Gary Peters, because I think similar to TJ Lee, like I think their floor is as good as those guys, right? those guys are the Coldens and Kents that are in already. They're getting beat. So I think the veteran presence that those guys will bring you have to at least you put all your eggs into the Gary Peters basket anyways in the offseason. So I think you have to at least try. For me, as I talked about earlier with like the matchup versus Edmonton, I have some confidence that I think they're going to be able to, have some success once again. For me, it would be, the following week when you're at home and you have a Chad Kelly coming in your building with, guys like Coxie and Polk and Kevin Mytel and David Unger and that kind of passing attack when it's really going to be put to the test, because we saw when Hamilton rolled in and we were playing Saskatchewan and quarterbacks and these receiver tandems were at the highest level, which, Argos, you could argue, are up there, passing attacks across the CFL. That's where you're really going to get tested and be put to the test. Is this secondary improved enough? So it'll be, wait and see, but hopefully they can take another step and secure that second win this week.
Bob and Dill with our next question. Punt and kick has to be better. And let's get into it. Special teams. We heard the interview off the top from Dennis McKnight. He's taken over as BC special teams coordinator. According to the CFL's aggregate special teams, BC entered the week ranked 9th of 9 teams. We're last in several special teams categories, including net punting, kickoff average, punt average, kick return average, opponent punt returns. There is no question that the special teams have to be better if this team is going to have success down this 9-game stretch here. BC's starting possessions, starting its average around its own 32-yard line, while the opponents are starting around their 40-yard line. 8 yards difference there. Every time you exchange possession, you're giving up 8 yards, basically on return. So McKnight has emphasized technique, leverage, more physical mentality. This game will be the first test of whether the changes have created any immediate improvement. I would think that 1 week is a little tight to see a lot of improvement, but the way this guy talks, maybe he can fire these guys up and we'll see some noticeable improvements. But no question about it, Bob. The Lions' kick return coverage has to be better, and their returns have to be better as well.
Yeah, special teams gets overlooked way too much, especially in the CFL game, right, where it is a true third of the game, no matter how you want to argue it. I think with just having 2 downs, offenses not being able to be as efficient, there's going to be more punts than normal and stuff like that. So I think being able to have a special teams unit that's able to not be a liability is so huge in the Canadian game, where you're able to flip the field at times. You're able to have a good punter and be able to rely on your coverage unit to go down the field, make tackles, and not give up big returns, and not have, the opposing offense set up, plus 35, plus 40, and the opposite, right, where we're not getting any big returns. Our blocking units on that side are not picking up their blocks. They're not opening any lanes. And we're starting at, the R20, R25, opposed to the opponents where they're having a ton of success. So I am curious. We saw it also with talking about how big special teams is, the Toronto-Winnipeg game, right, where you have a guy like Trey Vavel who goes from fumbling a return and then he ends up returning a missed field goal for a touchdown, totally swinging momentum back to his team. You also look at the Janarian Grant thing, right, where he kind of misjudges whether he's going to return the ball to the end zone or not. He ends up kind of bobbling it around. There's your ball game right there, right, where Toronto's unable to come back from that point on. So the little mistakes, right, where it's obviously been, maybe not talked about enough, where we've seen now multiple teams, us being one of them, with not knowing maybe the rules in terms of the ball being into the end zone. Can they return it? Should they return it? Should they touch it? So these are things where a Dennis McKnight, he needs to be hammering these in the meetings throughout the week and in the walkthroughs that'll be had on, tomorrow and before practice, all that stuff, where every small detail needs to be talked about and kind of, double, triple checked, that things are corrected, and hopefully the Lions are able to take a step in the right direction, and hopefully, pop a return and Nathan's able to start in Edmonton territory, or they're able to, pull something out of the bag and it's we start the game with a squib kick or something like that. So, as I talked about with Dennis too, I think that the players will respond, but they do have to go out there and execute themselves, or else it'll just be Dennis kind of getting us fired up opposed to seeing results on the field.
I do want to talk about Nathan Rourke because we kind of chatted before the show went on live about Rourke hasn't really had that dominant game yet this year. And I think the offense is starting to come along as long as they can keep the balance that they had 2 weeks ago. Rourke is 7-0 against his career in Edmonton. That gives a major psychological challenge to the Elks. How do we beat Nathan Rourke? Because we haven't done it yet. Now, I know this isn't the same team as those last 7, or those last 6. It is the same team as the last one, but I kind of feel like Nathan is due for that breakout game where we've seen him take over games and just do Nathan Rourke things, and we haven't seen that this year. Edmonton is his good luck charm, so to speak, in the Canadian.
Say it, Brian.
League.
Say it.
So let's hope that Nathan can have that type of game. He's been sacked 10 times in 4 games.
Not ideal.
No. So the protection has to be better. Thankfully, Dejan Allen is back this week after suffering a head injury, so the bye week helped him get back. 7 sacks. Edmonton has 7 sacks and has shown the ability to generate pressure from its linebackers and secondary. BC can't rely on Rourke repeatedly escaping pressure. One thing I was happy to see was some hurry up. We talked about that 2 weeks ago before the game. And I thought when the Lions did go into hurry up, that was pretty effective. I would like to see them get more, go more hurry up and get Rourke out of the pocket. The RPO was very good 2 weeks ago. So I think the Lions are on track, and I just feel like Nathan is due for that big game, and I'm hoping it's going to be this Friday.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton is the team, and I think to your point earlier about like Edmonton and the Lions having Edmonton's number, Morley Scott touched on it today in First and Now when I think it was Moj maybe that asked him the question about kind of, what is it about the Lions having so much success versus the Elks, and he talked about like, you don't even have to bring it up to the players. They're very well aware of not only the stats and the numbers and how, when's the last time they won. So for me, that was a light bulbs went off, kind of like that's very, messing with obviously somebody's, mentality in that locker room. And they're, you're down early. You're starting to like, man, not again. We're losing to this team. Right. And I think that's something that's huge to play with. And I think it's on the Lions side this week. So hopefully they're able to capitalize on it. But I tend to agree with you, Brian, that I feel like a little bit of not I shouldn't say a breakout game, but like a big game, big Nathan Rourke game is coming. And it feels so weird coming into the season because you have a little bit of that blind faith in Nathan that, we have Nathan, like everything's going to be okay. He'll be able to figure it out. You quickly see that, hey, you lose 5 receivers. Even Nathan Rourke's going to, he's not totally Superman every time. He's got to be Clark Kent from time to time. So as Van East Eric says there about, no continuity, well, everybody's coming back, right? McInnes, Hatch, Passant, Hergy Mayala still in-house right now, right? Going to be dressed on game day. Jermaine Jackson, as I mentioned. So I think it sets things up. Xander Horvath coming out of the backfield, JB coming out of the backfield if they want, right? It's setting up for them to really kind of hit the ground running here and start to, not that I want it to become a regular, but God forbid we get in a couple of shootouts mid-season and we have to outscore our problems. Like, hey, sign me up for some entertaining games. I would love to see that. We kind of maybe felt like that was going to happen maybe in like a, Saskatchewan, Hamilton in week 2 or 3 where, hey, our offense might have to keep up with Hamilton and Saskatchewan. We're so beaten up that we're not able to. So, if we have to with a Toronto, say in 2 weeks at home, not to look too far ahead, if we have to go toe for toe with them, like we have our weapons back. And I think we can go toe to toe with them, especially with Nathan, it's felt like, we talked about it a few weeks ago, right? Like he's pressing, that he feels like he has to do everything because of the injuries, because of the 0-3 start. I feel like now he can, take a deep breath. We got that win on the in the column, and hopefully we see the Nathan Rourke that we know and love.
Mark Go Lion says Riders catching some breaks with the schedule. Don't see Bo in either of the Hamilton games. Don't see Als until weeks 19 and 20 when Montreal will have first easily locked up. Stamps get Als back to back in July. Yeah, I mean, every team has its little schedule perks and challenges. Obviously, BC and Toronto have had some significant challenges this year. It didn't help the Lions that they had some injury issues early with the receiving core. but everybody has to fight through it. And yeah, now the Lions are one game away from coming back to BC Place. If they can come back 2-3, they've got a bunch of home games coming up, and they're going to have to make hay in some of those home games. When you look at the West Division, like we talked about, I mean, Edmonton's only played us in the West. They've still got to play Calgary. They've still got to play Saskatchewan. They've still got to play Winnipeg. They played Montreal once, and we'll play them again. But like when you look at their schedule, the meat of their schedule is coming up. I mean, they play the Riders back to back after the Riders have their bye week. So that's going to be a challenge for Edmonton as well. Everybody's got their challenges, so you've got to play the games in front of you. And I'm just looking forward to getting back to BC Place to see what this offense can do in BC Place. And get some home cooking in them, sleep in their own beds, all that kind of stuff. The poor Argos, they go back to Hamilton for one game, and then they got to come all the way back to Vancouver. I mean, you think the Lions have a rough schedule?
I was gonna say
the Argos are just like getting shafted. They've been flying across Canada for most of their games, and they're not getting any breaks. And when they come out to BC, they're going to be a tired football team. And the Lions are going to have to take advantage of that. But first things first, we got to take care of the Elks in Edmonton. Fanny Sterrick says, take the over in the Toronto game.
Yeah, I'd hammer that for sure.
Yeah.
That should be a track meet, especially, back on the clean track in BC Place, as you mentioned, Brian. Hopefully the roof nice and open. I would imagine, as East Van Eric said, that'll be a high scoring one, as we talked about. But just this is a big one. You getting the 3 keys here, Brian, going forward, especially to start week 7, to just get a win. You can kind of enjoy the rest of the week as well, especially as fans, right? You're able to sit back to the doubleheader on Saturday and enjoy it much more with the win.
Okay, let's get to our 3 keys now. Our first key is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that includes the lineup. Like I would give this lineup another shot, try and get win number 2, contain Justin Rankin again, shut down the run, and pressure for Jardo. I think that's how you beat the Edmonton Elks. Turnover battle, 4-1 in the first meeting. Attack the ball, force Fajardo into throws he doesn't want to make. Key number 3, keep building on playing complementary football, all 3 phases. We'll want to see more growth from the special teams, more growth from the defense, and finish those drives on offense. I think that's one thing that the Lions offense is pretty up there in a lot of categories. They're just not finishing enough drives, and that's one of the things that they're going to have to do more often if they're going to turn this thing around and get some wins in the win column.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I touched on earlier about the turnovers, and just not only is it huge for giving Nathan as many swings in the game, or to step in the batter's box, whatever you want to call it, you're also generating momentum and confidence on your side, right? Where you're seeing the ball rolling and seeing, you hear turnovers come in bunches, right? That's usually one of the sayings. So hopefully that unit over there is playing confident. You talked about Darnell Sankey earlier, Brian. It was super nice to see him very active last week or 2 weeks ago, where he has the interceptions, he's having the splash plays, but he's all over Justin Rankin and hitting the right gaps, and played very fast downhill. It was watching Josh Woods get the pick 6. It was much easier after Darnell Sankey had a good game the week before. With the Lions, all these defensive players the Lions end up losing, and watching go to other teams and perform.
Okay. For those of you that turned in to see Giulio Caracatta, I think Giulio fell asleep on the couch. He hasn't made it into the studio, so I'm sure he just forgot. But we'll hook up with him for another day and give him a hard time about it. But we're our apologies for that. Out of our control. Okay, we've kind of covered the game. Let's get into our power rankings, which was a topic of some discussion this week. Look, like we said, until Edmonton starts beating some of these teams, and I know they beat Montreal, my argument there is they lost it as they lost it on a judgment call by a referee in overtime. I mean, that call could have gone either way, and if it went Montreal's way, the game was over. So, yeah, they beat Montreal, and full credit for it. Montreal's a good team. It was a wet and rainy, sloppy night in Edmonton, but they got the job done there. However, they played Ottawa twice and Winnipeg once. Winnipeg was still kind of struggling at that point. Edmonton's a good football team. We're not saying they're not.
Yeah.
It's just, I think Montreal, Sask, and in my opinion, Calgary is a better football team, even though their record may say a little bit otherwise. They're 2-3. But they played some tough football teams too. So I think they're going to beat Montreal this week. We'll get to our picks in a minute, but I think that Calgary at home, we saw what they did to Toronto. Now I know the Argonauts defense is not the Montreal defense and all of that, but I think Calgary, I keep saying this all year, and I've taken them and pick them, and they've broke my heart a couple times this year already, but I think they're going to get the job done against Montreal this week. So until Edmonton starts playing some tougher competition, we're keeping them here. That was our consensus for the week. But Winnipeg moved up, Toronto moved down, BC moved up just because Hamilton was so bad without Bo Levi Mitchell, and Ottawa is Ottawa at this point. They're not moving from the basement anytime soon, I don't think. Hamilton signed that quarterback. What's his name?
Frost.
Harrison Frost.
Yeah.
Who they had in training camp either this year or last year, and let him go in favor of Taylor Powell, I think. He was playing in the UFL or XFL, something like that. And they brought him back. So he kind of knows their system a little bit, and I doubt he would play this week against Toronto. So you're probably going to see Dolagala or who's the other option there?
Trey Ford. Pray for Hamilton, man. I do feel for their fans a little bit because, man, going from Bo Levi Mitchell, who was playing at a just unbelievable level, and I saw the stat, I believe, last game in the fourth quarter when it was 4 total quarters that they were out without Bo. They had 65 passing yards or something like that combined between Trey and Dolagala. And when you go from Bo, who was just lighting the world on fire, it's just, I don't know where they go from here, because I think as their defense, I think, will be able to improve over the year. We have Wint McManus come back. You have guys like Jamal Peters and Reggie Stubblefield. You have some swagger and some all-star caliber players on that defense. I think they're going to be able to stay in ball games, but just like that offense is just stuck in the mud. When you look at that game too, I believe the Riders didn't pull away until the second half, really. It was 1-1 after the first quarter. And I know the scoreline was, I think, 37-7 or whatever it was. The Riders did put belt to the it's just like the defense was playing good, and the offense has nothing to show for it. Edmonton, Brian, not to touch on them too long, because I just kind of want to reiterate what you did, but just no disrespect. I agree with Brian. It just says a little bit more for me personally on Montreal and Saskatchewan, who I think have clearly showed that they are the top of the league, and I think they're trying to peak at the right time. They've shown with their playoff caliber championship. And then Calgary, I think I agree with you, Brian, that I'm one of the ones that are kind of like on board. I think they feel like they're like everyone's sleeping on them a little bit. I know they're obviously 2-3 and come with the 2 wins, so rightfully so. But for me, I think when you have a guy like Vernon Adams, he's going to give you an opportunity every year as long as he's healthy. And that defensive line, they're able to stay healthy. They're going to be an absolute pain to go against come playoff time if they're able to get in a playoff spot. When you have those 3 or 4 horses up front that are able to get to the passer and able to drop 8 in the coverage, 7, 8 guys in the coverage, have a spy underneath, whatever you want to do. It's just able to, your defense is at such a luxury in that end. And then you look at last week, Brian, maybe to touch a little bit on last week or 2 weeks ago power rankings. It was quite the debated topic as well with us. And you look at kind of the two opposites, right? When you look at Hamilton, you're obviously right in that, how you were kind of in the camp that you wanted to see. I believe BC move up, Winnipeg, Hamilton drop because of the injuries. Winnipeg makes the trade for Drew Brown. They are able to show a little bit of stability and show that, hey, compared to maybe a Taylor Elgersma, Drew Brown's obviously a little bit more familiar with the system. He's a veteran, so he's able to kind of stabilize things. You look at Hamilton, and it's like they are absolutely hot garbage. They were warranted to maybe slide a week before. For me personally, Brian, obviously we're Lions fans. There's no there's no use of hiding the facts that we are homers. Maybe 80-90% of the time. I know from time to time we will be realistic as well, but Bryce and I were a little bit more hesitant on moving BC up right away, and obviously we weren't able to have a show, and kind of my thinking more so as well. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts moving forward, is because I think we going into the season had, speaking for all of us, so high expectations, right? And kind of the goals early on for the season were to make sure that the West Final was hosted in a BC place, and I still think we have we have everything ahead of us for that to happen. It's still early in the year. My thinking is just to pump the brakes a little bit, because I want to see it, as I talked about, like, hey, let's see it versus Toronto first, because beating Edmonton twice is nice, but beating like a Saskatchewan in the playoffs when they know how to play that dirtier type of football, when we haven't really shown it yet, that's where my hesitation is. I think my expectations are a little bit maybe too high, and because I do have blinders on to being a BC Lions fan, I have higher expectations, so that's why I didn't really want to move them up too much. But I did hear your argument of Winnipeg and Hamilton last week, maybe wanting to slide, especially at that time, right, where it's Elgersma opposed to Drew Brown. So I hear your side of things as well, but it was definitely a debated topic with a few commentators I saw last week taking your side, I think. And then I think it's a fun debate, right? This is what power rankings are for. I tend to not be a big power rankings guy and get upset for the CFL power rankings.
It's all for fun.
Yeah, it's for stuff like us, right? For shows, for us to have a topic, to have discussion. But inside that locker room, right, those guys are like it's next game, that's the most important one. We don't really ride the roller coaster and kind of all that stuff. So it's all for fun and for us fans. So I always think it's a good discussion. But I was curious, kind of your thoughts on that.
I will point out that we did have Edmonton ranked number 1 a couple weeks ago. And when BC beat them, that was part of my thinking, is we just beat our number 1 power ranked team and gave them their first loss. So they were number 1 on our power rankings because they were the only undefeated team at the time. So we gave them the kudos. After we beat them and Winnipeg and Hamilton sustained those injuries, I just felt like on paper that week, heading into the next week, BC deserved to be ahead of those two teams because, no Bo Levi Mitchell. We saw what happened in Hamilton. Winnipeg was able to gut it out with Drew Brown. And, obviously that trade is looking a lot better. When that trade happened, I was like, what are they doing? Like everything you heard coming out of training camp was how good Elgersma looked. And I was just surprised that they made that trade at the time, because I was like, well, what happens to Elgersma now? But a very astute move by Mike O'Shea and the Bombers Brain Trust to go out and get Drew Brown, kind of anticipating like we might need another veteran quarterback. So they went out and did that, and it's paid dividends for them. And it sounds like he's going to start again this week against Ottawa, which make that one of the games of the week, because
watch.
He wants to light it up against the Red Blacks and just kind of give Ryan Dinwiddie a little bit of a wink on the sidelines there.
The Johnny Manziel will be reborn. He'll be doing the money sign and the side. It'll be just. Is that Saturday, Brian? Or is that Sunday?
I don't know. I don't have the schedule pulled up here.
Yeah, similar to you. I think that's going to be one that I'm going to be excited to hopefully watch. Hopefully it's on Sunday and it's not on the World Cup final day, because Drew Brown is going to be fired up. But I think Ottawa, man, like if you're Jake Mayer, man, after last week, 4 interceptions, some of them were brutal interceptions as well, off his back foot, not even near the receiver, or just poor throws, poor decisions as well. This is your opportunity to kind of I don't want to say save your season, but at least have a little bit of some positivity here, because they are 0-6 and on the verge of 0-7, is it? I believe they have, I think they go into the bye week, and then they have, I think it's like Montreal out of the bye. And then I want to say like Saskatchewan, and then I think we play them in August at some point, I want to say. So Ottawa's in trouble, and hopefully they're able to get one, but we took our picks. I'm taking Winnipeg because I think Drew Brown's going to be ready to go and probably put on a good performance.
I think we all took Winnipeg. I think if you're taking Ottawa, you need your head examined. But Anyway, those are our power rankings for heading into week 7. No disrespect to Edmonton. I thought about putting them at 3, but I just like Calgary's. Like you talked about their defensive line. I just think that line, once they get some games under their belt, they're going to be a nasty piece of business to play against. And I think at home against Montreal, I think they got a good shot this week.
I talked about it on the show before I came on here, Brian, about Calgary's, that's how you win in the playoffs too, right? Like being able to be strong up front. They run the ball with Dietrich Mills and that kind of road grading offensive line. And then in the trenches, right? They're able to get that organic 4-man pressure. I also think because maybe we're Lions fans and we are we're so familiar with that rivalry in the playoffs the last few years. You also look at last year, right, where they were the better team. Let's call a spade a spade. They were the better team in the West semifinal.
Yep.
The Lions just found a way to win the football game, right? And they were on the brink of being in the West final against Saskatchewan, and who knows what can happen. So I think that team's starting to, get their playoff experience with, you look at a guy like Jalen Philpott, who had arguably one of his biggest games in that playoff game. He's kind of picked up where he left off from that game, had a good season. And obviously, if you're a Lions fan, I think every time that, Calgary's not playing BC, you're rooting for a guy like Vernon Adams to do well because of not only the player that he is, but, everything that he does off the field and kind of the guy that he is in the community.
For sure. Okay, let's get to our weekly picks. I saw Bryce pop in here and say hello to everybody. He is in Elks country. I don't know if he's going to make it to the game on Friday. I think he said he wasn't going to be able to, but he's there for work, so that's why he's not here tonight. He's got an excuse, unlike Giulio, who we're going to give a hard time. We're going to give a hard time to Giulio when he does get on the show. We've got a question here. We'll go through some questions too. Any update on Robert Carter Jr. In his NFL tryouts? OTAs are not quite, well, not OTAs, but
training camp. Training camp's July 29th, I believe, opens for some teams. So it is around the corner.
We'll start getting some reports on that as we head into August for sure.
Yeah,
I've seen some OTA depth charts. I've been keeping an eye on things. I have a Google alert set up for Robert Carter Jr. because I too am very anxious to see what's happening with him. But I've seen a lot of depth charts from pundits and podcasters and things like that, and he is nowhere near the top on people's depth chart, but that's normal. He's a guy from the Canadian Football League that wasn't drafted, signed as a free agent. So not many people are going to have him very high on their depth charts, at least to start training camp. He's going to have to make some people notice him. Yeah,
he'll have an uphill battle to go, but I kind of, one of the guys in recent history that's kind of been able to stick on a roster, D. Alford, obviously former Winnipeg Blue Bomber a few years ago, I believe. But, what a blessing in disguise that could be, Brian, if we had Robert Carter drop in, hopefully healthy, all things considered, and able to drop him right back into this Mike Benevides defense where he's familiar with. It's not like a change of scheme. I would think that hopefully similar to Matthew Betts coming back from Detroit Lions, what was that, 24, I believe, where I believe he played 3 days later or whatever down in Touchdown Pacific. I want to say he came back on Tuesday, Wednesday, and played Saturday in the game. So hopefully what a thing that could be for the Lions defense. Obviously rooting for Robert Carter Jr. It's Minnesota. It was Minnesota, correct? I believe.
Who he's with?
Yeah.
No, Indianapolis.
My apologies. So definitely one that come also preseason games. If he's in, the fourth quarter of some of these games, that's probably maybe a good indication that he's going to be also running with the third, fourth teams and maybe likely cut. So one to keep an eye on, especially for Lions fans.
Bob does point out that he's also great returning punts and kicks, which may be what keeps him in the National Football League. He may not be playing as a corner. He may be a kick returner. But we'll see what happens with him. It'd be great to get him back, but obviously we wish him the best. And he does remain Lions property if he does decide to come back to the CFL. A lot of times what happens too is when these guys get cut from camp, depending on, how soon they get cut, sometimes they've got plays on tape that other teams will take a look at, bring them in, maybe take a look. So it could take a while for him to kind of cycle through all that and get back to the Lions, but it would be certainly a great upgrade to get him back for sure. Okay, let's get into our weekly picks now. Bryce is starting to pull away with this thing. Got to get our butts in gear. I am taking up the rear now. and Cole is 11-11. I'm 10-12. Bryce 14-9. Now, I saw on your last podcast.
I know.
Stamps. What's
I
going
know.
on here? You're
I know.
wishy-washy here.
I know. I'm contradicting myself, Brian. Okay, so I have, like I just said earlier, Montreal and Saskatchewan, I think for me have proven that kind of, not on a weekly basis, obviously like to see them win. I'm not too worried about them, especially if they're able to have healthy quarterbacks come the end of the year. That's probably the biggest thing for both of them, is if Davis Alexander and Trevor Harris are able to be healthy. They're going to be a pain in the neck to eliminate come playoff time. Now, obviously, I think we made our picks Monday, correct? And with the
Monday or
show, or maybe Tuesday. Anyways, when we were going through the picks tonight, you were tuned in at that point, right? So I was trying to live talk myself through, because I wanted to take Montreal, but with Montreal winning last week, I think Calgary will naturally just knock them off, and that's nothing against Montreal. So I did contradict myself a little bit. My thinking also as well on this side of things was kind of having to go opposite of Bryce on at least one of these to try to at least catch Bryce. And my other options weren't any better. So that was also my thinking. So I did contradict myself a little, Brian, but the graphics made, so we're going with it.
Yes. So we're all taking the Lions. I hesitate a little bit taking the Lions. I'm nervous about this game, but I do think they're starting to come out of it. And I'm really hoping that I'm right and that we can get that second win in Edmonton. It's going to be tough. I think if there's any game that the Elks are going to be able to snap this 7-game winless streak against Nathan Rourke, it's probably going to be this one. I think this is the best team they've had in over that stretch of games. And I think, this is going to be their best opportunity to do it. They don't play the Lions again unless they play them in the playoffs. We talked about, how Edmonton has to win by more than 12 points or the Lions still win the season series, which a lot of Elks fans were kind of annoyed with a couple weeks ago that Mark Killam didn't kick a field goal here and there to kind of reduce that
chip back in, yeah.
Reduce that point spread. But it is what it is. They need 13 to take the series off us, but hopefully that won't matter. I went with the Stamps simply because, as I said earlier, I'm high on the Stamps. I think they've got a great football team. Their defense is scary. They've got some great offensive weapons. I don't know if they're getting Reggie Bigleton back this week, but I know he's close. I haven't seen their injury reports, but I do like the Stamps at home over Montreal. Argos are probably going to win over Hamilton. I just don't see that Hamilton offense being able to compete with Chad Kelly at this point. If they're going to win, they're going to win on defensive turnovers, and that's going to be a tough task. It's hard to win a football game when you've only got one side of your offense or defense going. So I'm going with the Argos there, and Winnipeg, Ottawa. I think it's pretty clear what we're expecting there. So yeah, those are our picks for the week. Okay. Again, our apologies that Giulio didn't show up tonight, but we'll aim to get him on later in the season. I know he's going to feel really bad about it. I think he just forgot. So our apologies for that. But thanks for all of you joining us tonight. 87 people in the chat right now. I just want to point out 74 of you people are watching on X. We are trying to get you to head over to YouTube. Here it is, youtube.com/BC Lions Den. And if you can give us a sub over there and watch the show over there, it really helps the show grow because it gets us into the algorithm. And that is very important for getting our show out there and helping us grow. So if any of you people are on X right now, please head over to the YouTube channel, drop us a sub if you like what we're doing. And we really, really appreciate that. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, of course, as many of you know, Instagram at BC or Instagram/BC Lions Den. Any final thoughts, Cole, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, small change of things. It is still BC football related though, but the BCFC kicks off this weekend, Brian. So just wanted to give them a shout out, as well as I will be on the call for the VI Raiders in Okanagan. Sun game on Saturday at 4:00. It's actually the TELUS game of the week, Brian. So it'll actually be on TELUS. I believe it's channel 1981, I believe. 1981 if you have TELUS cable. The BCFC is a great product. I think it's a great league. I played in it myself, grew up watching it as well. A ton of greats. Obviously, we mentioned Kieran Passant earlier, guys like Javon Katoy, Whitey, Konar, guys that are making plays on a weekly basis for the Lions, as well as across the CFL. Obviously, we had Andrew Harris on in the past, and ton of other greats, Logan Furland as well across the league. So I would encourage people that if they're out in the BC community, BC area, if you're in Kamloops, Okanagan, up at the Apple Bowl, Langley, down in West Shore, get out on a Saturday and check out some football, and you might see the future BC line, right? Obviously, Bob Medill mentions Colton Meikle up in Okanagan with the Okanagan Sun. He's actually making his transition from the Kamloops Broncos, who he played for 5 seasons actually, and was a underager, which is pretty crazy and pretty unique that he's I believe was playing at 16 years old when it's a kind of 18 to 22-year-old league. He's going to be probably a 7-year BCFC player, CJFL player, which is almost unheard of. So I would encourage you to get out and check him out, because he has been at the last 3 BC Lions, not only rookie camps, training camp, played in preseason games. There'll be some guys across the league that I would very encourage you to check out. I think we'll get some looks next year, like a Tanai Wisdom for the VI Raiders, Daryl Overstreet, quarterback for the Langley Rams. Shaquille Barrett, I believe, is another one. Brian, if you're not doing anything on a Saturday, I would encourage you. Langley has a couple. I know it's a kind of a transition turnaround type of year, but they have 2 players that one of them was playing in the AF1, the Arena Football League, as the quarterback, Daryl Overstreet. I think he's going to be quite the player. He was actually the best player, I think, in my opinion, at the BC Lions E-Camp, but he was a new player to the league, so I'm not too sure how things worked in terms of being invited to camp, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, like I said, encourage you guys to check it out. As I mentioned, you guys can check it out, the game Saturday at 4:00 on channel 1981, as well as BCFC TV. You'll have the game as well.
So you're doing some color or play-by-play on that?
Yeah, so I did the color commentary last season, and this will be my 2nd season with my play-by-play guy, Noah Atnikoff. He actually has a little bit of relationship with Bryce. I know they go back and forth quite often, and they're 2 big football guys. So I quite enjoy it. As I said, Brian, I was a guy that I remember being 9-10 years old, being dropped off at the gate at Caledonia Park and going into the gates and watching a young Andrew Harris and him being on the water bottles and popcorn bags and stuff like that, and being hearing from people like, hey, make sure you keep an eye on this guy, remember who he is, and he's going to be a future CFL star one day. Of course, he turns into a legend and one of the best Canadian players of all time. So super cool for me. And then obviously being able to play for the team and now color commentate, it's a fun thing for me to do on a Saturday. Of course, from time to time it inflicts with Lions, so I was pumped this week that it's a Friday night Lions game. That'll be, hopefully we're maybe going to do post game. I'm not too sure how things are going to work out, but do a post game Friday, and then I'll kind of flip the switch, start to do some of my preparation Friday after the show, and head into Saturday, and it'll be game day.
Yeah, I was just going to have that as a footnote here. We will be doing a post-game show right after the Lions and Elks play after that game ends. So tune in, watch us. And if you subscribe, you get notified. So head over to YouTube and subscribe and get ready for that post-game show. We will go for probably an hour and a half. If we're getting a lot of traffic through here, we'll keep it going for as long as you guys want to talk. So hopefully we'll be talking about the Lions' 2nd win, but this is the only place you're going to find a Lions post-game show. So make sure you check us out, and we'll provide that for you guys. That's going to do it for us. Apologies again for Giulio Caracatta not showing up, but we'll get him on later. Until we'll talk to you on Friday after the game. Until then, I'm Brian Wabershin. He is Cole McGarvey, and on behalf of the absent Bryce Coots, thanks for watching. Roar, you Lions, roar. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Night, everybody.